Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to jump into a fantastic business story, one that's all about the massive gap that can exist between our ambitions and, well, reality, and how the numbers never lie.
So our story centers on a company called VLAS, and they had a goal so big, so ambitious, it was like a giant. But you know that old saying, right? Even the mightiest giants can have feet of clay, a hidden weakness that threatens to bring the whole thing tumbling down. Let's see what that actually looked like.
Okay, look at this number. This was their projected revenue for just one sales event, 5,570 Brazilian real. Now, the currency itself isn't the important part. What you need to know is that this goal was, by a huge margin, the most ambitious projection of any business at that event. They weren't just aiming high, they were aiming for a whole other planet.
But, of course, when the day was done and the cash was counted, reality had a different story to tell. They brought in 2,861. I mean, still a great number, but it was nearly half of what they'd aimed for. So, on paper, this looks like they failed, right? Well, maybe not.
And here's the twist. That final number, the $2,861, it was actually one of the best sales performances of the entire event. They pretty much outsold everybody else there. So think about that for a second. They missed their own goal by a mile, but they totally crushed the competition.
And that creates a really fascinating puzzle, doesn't it? How can you have such a strong, successful sales day and, at the same time, have it be a warning sign of a major miscalculation? If they did so well, what could possibly have gone wrong?
While the problem had nothing to do with their business, their products were awesome, their team was killing it. The problem was the sandbox they decided to play in. See, the issue wasn't the giant itself, it was the shaky ground it was built on. This brings us to a really critical business idea called TAM, which stands for Total Addressable Market. Put simply, TAM is the absolute total size of the pie. It's the maximum amount of money available in that specific market. Even if you were the only one selling, TAM is the most you could ever hope to make.
So the real question we have to ask is this: was there even $5,500 worth of "let's buy candles today" money in that room? Or was their goal just fundamentally completely bigger than the entire market they were trying to sell to?
And you know what? We don't need some supercomputer to figure this out. We can use this brilliant back-of-the-napkin trick called a Fermi calculation. It's named after the physicist Enrico Fermi, and it's just a way to see if a number is even in the right ballpark using nothing but a few logical guesses.
It's a really simple three-step process. First, you just guess how many people were at the event. Second, you take a shot at how much an average person might realistically spend at just one stall. And third, you just multiply those two numbers together to get a rough idea of the absolute max anyone could have sold that day. All right, let's run some quick numbers, just for fun. Let's say 500 people showed up. And let's be super generous and say every single person spent, on average, about $20. Well, that means the total addressable market for the entire event, for everyone selling anything, was probably around $10,000.
And boom, that right there perfectly illustrates the problem. To hit their goal, VLAS needed to somehow convince people to give them more than half of all the money spent at the entire event. With dozens of other vendors selling food, drinks, and other cool stuff, that wasn't just ambitious, it was practically impossible. Their goal was broken from the very start because it just ignored the reality of the market.
You know, this whole case study brings up a classic debate for entrepreneurs. Is it better to set a huge, crazy goal and miss because it pushes you to do more than you thought you could? Or is it better to set a smaller, totally achievable goal and nail it, which builds confidence and momentum? Honestly, you can make a pretty strong argument for both sides.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that before you set some massive goal, you have to understand the size of the playground. Use simple tools to do a quick reality check on your ambition. And maybe most importantly, remember that just because you miss an unrealistic target doesn't mean you didn't have a huge success. Context is everything. And that really leaves us with one final thought. Whether you're talking about a sales target, a personal project, or some big life goal, it's awesome to dream of building a giant. Just make sure before you start building, you take a quick second to check the ground it's going to stand on.